Let's talk about the Jets for a minute. They're 0-2, injuries everywhere. Adam Gase had an interesting week. This week he said he'd take, quote, who's this is where you're at. It's not even October. Good God.
Know, right?
Whoever's got a pulse right now,
on.
end quote, to fill the voids. Then linebacker Avery Williams popped in, and he joined our buddies Joe and Evan over on WFAN in New York City. And he complained about the pace of practice. Now, yesterday, there was a little bit of a protest here, a Fire Gase protest. Wasn't wildly attended. Only 4 people showed up on the corner, probably right near your house, by the way.
It probably was.
You know, it could have been Tiki's buddies coming home from
Park Avenue, Park Avenue in Florham Park. I run by there frequently.
Oh, what a joke. So here we are. Considering Sam Darnold's had multiple offensive coordinators in his first 3 seasons, multiple head coaches as well, obviously, it would be harmful to his development to switch coaches than to keep Gase around.
I'm going to say out of bounds of that. I think it wouldn't be harmful. It would be tough for him, but that's just, you got to have the right coach, and I don't know if he's the right coach right now.
You don't know if he's the right coach. Putting it mildly.
You
don't know if he's the right coach.
It's only 2 games in. He could turn it around.
He's not turning anything around except his car when he gets gas. He'll turn that around.
I'm not holding on to Adam Gase to further the development of Sam Darnold.
True.
Is my point. So
okay.
I'm going to say out of bounds.
I agree. At this point, I don't love 3 coaches, going into year 4. Another offensive coordinator, that's problematic. That can retard progress because now you're thinking rather than reacting. I get it. But, even last night's game, which we'll get to a little later, I'm watching them play. There's pace, there's movement, there's tempo, there's innovation, there's original concepts, there's guys flying around. The Jets are just so predictable and so bad. It's impossible to judge what Darnold really is. His footwork is still a little sloppy, but then that touchdown he throws against the Niners where he's basically on the sideline, he throws it sidearm like Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. You're like, that's incredible arm talent.
Do that more.
I know. Plus, he won, 7 of his last 9 last year. He had mono. It's very hard to judge, but Adam Gase is not the right coach, not only for the Jets. Adam Gase is not the right head coach for any NFL team. He's been stealing money for years. It took me a year or 2 longer than most to figure that out, but he's a con guy. He's a con artist who doesn't know as much as he thinks he knows about the game, because what the Jets are trying, forget about talent, what they're doing conceptual, like just in terms of pure concepts, is old, stale, and predictable. He's terrible.
BT, he doesn't even know his locker room.
And that, too. All right, Nick Nurse, the opposite of Adam Gase. This guy's good. Nick Nurse won an NBA championship in his first season with the Raptors. And then, despite losing Kawhi, led the team to their best win percentage ever this year en route to winning Coach of the Year honors. Isn't that crazy? That really is amazing.
Right.
Now the Raptors have given him a contract extension worth an estimated $8 million a year. So they know what they're doing up there, that's for sure, which will put him behind only Popovich, Kerr, and Spoelstra's annual deals. 2 seasons in, here's the question. Nurse, or statement, Nurse is a top 4 coach in the NBA, in or out?
Inbounds, BT, because 50% of your tenure as a head coach, you've won a championship, and the other 50%, that's only 2 seasons, it's a small sample, you far exceed expectations, like significantly exceed expectations. You can coach. Now, you have some veterans, but also some really young, good players on that team, so it's the roster is constructed, and Masai Ujiri, you got to give a ton of credit for this, but I think he is top 4. Pop he's on the way out.
Yep.
And, Spoelstra and Kerr are obviously still there. And I'm trying to think who else you would throw in that conversation.
Malone's pretty good, man.
Mike Malone's
pretty good.
You could also, debate Bud, Coach Budenhauser.
He takes a step back from me this year. I'm sorry. He does.
I don't disagree.
He does.
Basically, you got gentlemanly swept out of the postseason.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even close. So, I think you're right. So I'm going to say, inbounds.
Yeah, I don't think we're missing anybody. I'm just looking at the teams here.
Also.
Snyder's a really good coach for Utah. He's really, I'm not going to say he's top 4, but he's really good. You know what? My answer is obviously inbounds. I just want to see if we're missing anybody. Nick Nurse is terrific.
There's nobody that's jumping. There's nobody that's going to jump in. There's some you can put in the top 6 or 7, but nobody's going to jump Nick Nurse.
No, when you've got to think about it that hard, you're probably overthinking it.
Right.
Just look at the obvious. Nick Nurse He can obviously coach a superstar. Granted, a very low-maintenance superstar, but he can coach a superstar. That's proven.
Yep.
And he can rally and inspire and overachieve with a group of guys that without a true superstar. He's great. He's a great coach.
Well, think about this, BT.
Inbounds.
Think of how he managed Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
I'm sure Doc Rivers had some of the same. I don't want to call them challenges because that means that he's a pain in the ass, meaning Kawhi's a pain in the ass. But think of the challenges of managing Kawhi Leonard with his minute back-to-back restrictions. Sometimes it's minute restrictions, and develop a chemistry even though he's not playing every day. Nick Nurse had to do the same thing last year, probably more so than Doc Rivers had to do this year. And look how effective Kawhi was.
Great point.
When it mattered in the postseason. He was money. Kawhi wasn't that same player this year.
So we use that to illuminate Nurse, but also understand that Doc Rivers.
As we talked about a couple days ago.
Which we did. Okay. Typically in college football, the team's got to be 500 or above against FBS opponents to qualify for a bowl game. However, now, Teak, the NCAA is considering a proposal to allow any team, to be eligible to play in a bowl during the shortened season. Some smaller schools are obviously worried that they'll get glossed over for the bigger schools that might travel better if they're actually allowed to go to some of these games by then, and maybe they will, like the Bahama Bowl. I'm sure you can go to the Aloha Bowl. I'm sure you can, maybe. I think you can. So it's a legitimate concern, and the bigger name programs, maybe who have inferior records, are catapulted to bowls, and teams that are lower profile but maybe better, at least this year, get looked over. So it's an interesting question, in or out. It's a mistake to allow any team to qualify for a bowl, even during this unique season.
I'm going to say out of bounds, BT, because let's not forget the protocols that all of the colleges and universities are thinking about implementing and are going to have to adhere to. These bowl games, when they happen, are going to be regional. They're not going to be like international. We're going to go to, play. It's never going to happen because they don't own this bowl. But like Virginia is never going to go play in the Rose Bowl. You know what I mean? Unless it's part of the college football playoff.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's
So you're saying they're still somewhat limited in what they could do?
Exactly.
With certain ones, though.
Certain schools and basically states and school systems aren't going to let their teams travel across the country.
Well, somebody's going to go to the Bahama Bowl.
I know. The Bahama Bowls are different.
Why?
I'm talking about like the regional bowls, like the Peach Bowl or the CarQuest Bowl or the... I don't know, the Motor City Bowl.
You don't mean regional as much as you mean where certain designations for conference affiliation.
Forget the conference affiliation. I'm thinking bowls are going to be populated by teams that are close to the bowl site.
Gotcha.
Right? So
gotcha.
It's
you really
odd.
think so?
I do, because I don't
that
think
would stink.
I know it'll stink, but I don't think that the schools and the the presidents and the chancellors or even the ADs are going to say, okay, yeah, go travel halfway across the country for 6 days or whatever it may be, and risk whatever. They're still charged with protecting these kids, so it's just an odd year. So I'm going to say it's not a mistake. So out of bounds.
It's a unique thought. I didn't consider that. I don't necessarily know that I fully agree, but I don't really look at it that way. I'm going to say out of bounds. I think that this is one of those years. It's not a mistake. You just do what you have to do to piece something together.
No doubt.
That's it. I mean, how many bowls are there? 48, 50, whatever. It's like 50 bowls, 52, whatever.
And
you
might get teams that say no thanks.
You absolutely will.
You know what I mean?
Which will open up the door for maybe lower profiles. Yeah. You just got to piece something together like a schedule, and we're going to get into that with the Pac-12 and the Big Ten with Jonesy coming up next segment. You got to do what you got to do in a pandemic year. Hopefully, our kids don't even see something like this down the road. So we'll deal with it now and eradicate it and eventually get back to fully functioning sports world and society. But whatever it is, put it on TV, fulfill the requirements, make a few bucks, placate the sponsors and move on. And if people have an issue with that, I don't want to say too bad. I don't want to sound that callous, but you just have to understand the circumstances are different. So you're going to have to deal with it.
Tune in next time for another edition of Inbounds or Out of Bounds with Tiki and Tierney.